So, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the fall edition of the Digital Food Series 2022. And welcome to join us on a beautiful autumn day on the topic of Verdify, personalized nutrition. My name is Tiffany Tsui. I'm the moderator of the Digital Food Series. I'm a sustainability strategist, consultant, and entrepreneur. Other than co-hosting the digital food platform, I'm also the managing partner at the Vertical Farm Institute, and we focus on developing sustainable ultra short chain solutions for cities. Also on the digital food team are Dick Veerman, founder of Foodlog, waving, and Anushka. She's a project manager at Foodlog. She'll be also helping me with the poll questions. So we developed the concept of the digital food series to focus on the theme of connecting data, technology, and strategy, and connecting people, ideas, and regions. In this year, we continued our user cases to address the key question: how to unlock the true value of sustainability with data and digital transformation. From our past user cases, we have already seen that digital transformation is becoming a top priority for companies, and it offers also a lot of opportunities for new kind of business to take advantage of the data and technology available. So today, our case on Verdify is such a user case, and quite different from our past user cases, which focus more on, let's say, the big established players such as supermarket chains or big multinationals regarding the question of digital transformation on their business, on their chain. Today, we look at a case of a startup, a rather successful startup, let's say riding a wave of digital transformation to create impact in health and sustainability. So before I introduce my guest today, Jochem Bossenbroek, I would like to start with a poll question to to know our audience today. Anushka, please pull up the first poll. So the first poll question is: what is your stand? What is your position regarding the statement "food is medicine"? This question can be qualified: fresh food or good food is medicine. On Foodlog, currently there's a whole series about what is defined as fresh. So loosely defined, it has to be would be considered good food is medicine. How do you agree with this statement? It's a simple yes or no choice. So no middle sand. You have to choose a position. So while you think about that answer, I would like to introduce Jochem Bossenbroek. Jochem, you are the CEO and founder of Verdify. And before you start this new company, you have had a very successful career in the area of life science and biotech. You have founded several successful companies. And so now for the last 5 years, you've been busy building up Verdify, which is a personalized nutrition service. Can you tell us more about it?
Yes, thanks a lot for the introduction, Tiffany. And I indeed happily tell more about it. I'll start sharing the screen so you can also see what I'm actually talking about. So you should be able to see it. Can you let me know if it shifts to the next slide as well? Okay, perfect. So indeed, welcome to our story about Verdify, and where we are really a social company with a very strong mission statement of enabling people to make better food choices for personal and planetary health. And today it's not only me, by the way, it's also Fleur Pasman, our nutrition director, and she'll also take up part of the story. So you have multiple persons to interact with today. But let me first give you a snapshot of what type of company we are and what we are working towards. Starting with the ambition, and that is that we want to be a key driver in the global shift towards healthy and sustainable eating, because we see a lot of opportunities with every bite that we take, and I will explain further on this. And what we are building is a method and technology that can be used to inspire people on making better food choices by fully personalizing online recipe content. And we do that with quite complicated technology, which we'll zoom in a bit further today as well. Right now, we are 5 years old, funded with 3 million private capital, and backed up also by EIT Food, as we're part of the Rising Food Stars network. A team of currently 25 persons has grown since I made this slide last week. And also last weeks, we got a bit of traction, and that's maybe nice to show first, because in 2 weeks' time, we received 2 awards, of which one is the Young Potential Expert Award by LIOF and the province of Limburg, but also EIT Food awarded us a 30K check for setting up a project in personalized nutrition and bringing it closer to the mass consumer. And a couple of months ago, we also received the Plant-Based Challenge Award from Carrefour, the French supermarket chain. So then a bit more on a serious note. So the reason that we exist is because we see a lot of opportunities for food in terms of health and also in terms of sustainability. So for example, already 1 in 5 deaths are associated with poor diet. And the current food system generates more than 30% of global greenhouse emissions. And this, of course, is not something that can stay this way, and really the status quo needs to be changed. And the good thing is we can actually change this. But what we have to do is then changing our diets towards more of a healthier version for yourself and also for the planet. The key problem is food choices are a bit tricky and challenging to change because people are rooted in their habits, which are maybe not the best. They struggle with the complexity of food choices. So ideally, you have to think about not only what you want to eat in terms of taste, but also about your health, about even what your genes say about if you can metabolize specific food types, but also your sports activity level and a range of factors. But it's impossible to take account of all these factors each time that you make a food decision. So that is why we have set up a system that takes away a bit of the complexity out of making food choices. And that works via what we call actionable meal inspiration that is adapted to personal and also to planetary needs. And here it's important also to emphasize that when we are speaking about personalized nutrition, we actually speak about the entire set of food intake. So there are a lot of companies that say they are active in personalized nutrition, but actually they do personalized supplements or vitamins, where we really are focused more on the diet. So the meals that people are consuming and also the drinks they're taking, the snacks, so everything between breakfast and dinner and dessert. So in this realm, we help people by enabling them to set up a personal nutrition profile that captures dietary needs and also taste preferences, plus a range of other factors that might be important for a person to make food choices. And that personal nutrition profile can be used on our Swap Meals recipe platform, where recipes can actually adapt according to the nutrition profile. So very importantly, we don't filter in a recipe database, but we actually change the composition of recipes to optimize it for a specific individual, also taking account of sustainability factors. And to make it easy, because it needs to be easy, takeaway barriers, we also match this platform to the outlets of retailers. So it's easy with a couple of presses on a button. You can also order the food at connected retailers. So currently, we're connected to the Albert Heijn, but we'll connect to other supermarkets in the Netherlands and the UK as well. But then I will zoom in a bit more on what actually is this nutrition profile and also how Swap Meals works, so you can get a bit of a better feel for it. So starting with the nutrition profile. That's shown here in a bit more of a close-up. And what this comprises currently is an overview of actually all your needs and preferences. So if a person has a food allergy, if they prefer to eat meatless, if they have a specific medical condition, which we'll come back to, by the way, a bit later, taste preferences, activity level, nutrition requirements, it's all in there. And now we base that on a couple of questions that are asked to people. But we're also taking the second step by working together with other companies that make it possible to map your genetic profile of the genes that say something about if you should be avoiding specific food types or actually using them in a larger quantity. But also working with companies that do blood tests. So look at the vitamin levels and incorporate that also, the output of that in your personal nutrition profile, as well as the output of microbiome tests. So you know that you can now analyze all the bacteria that live in your gut and that really have a big influence on the health of your gut, but also the health of the entire body. So taking all that, the bundle of all that information, you can actually start personalizing recipes on a very detailed level. And that's what we do. Also making it possible to incorporate dietary advice of a medical doctor or a dietitian. So this is all stored in one single place, which is your secured nutrition profile. And with that, at this moment, you can go to Swap Meals, which is our own recipe platform that has about close to about 1,000 recipes that are adaptive, so they can adapt to the nutrition profile. And it has about 40,000 users per month. And here you find a lot of recipe inspiration, which is already a bit more sustainable because it uses seasonal and local products. But the important thing is you can activate your nutrition profile here and the recipes will change according to your needs. So what then happens for every recipe is that the set of ingredients changes for you to make it a good match with your nutrition profile. And that happens by automatic swaps. So here you see also manual swaps, but that is only if you don't like this red onion or because you don't have it in your fridge and you have something else, for example. You can still swap out the ingredients, but in the basis, it's already optimized in terms of ingredient composition for your profile. And also importantly, the recipe instruction text changes as well, because if you introduce a new ingredient, of course, that needs to be accommodated in the instructions as well. And this can all be used for free at this moment by consumers. Next year, we'll also introduce a premium model, but it follows later. But of course, we need to have a revenue model as well as a company. And that's why we have introduced the concept for promoting what we call future fit products, so that they're okay from a nutritional and also from a sustainability standpoint. And we can introduce these brands, these products in the recipe content so people get inspired on what to choose. And we have had quite some discussion around this, but for us, the main factor is that as a consumer, you also have to choose between brands. So it's actually better to guide people in their decision than to leave it up to them what brands to choose for. So this actually fits in really well with our company mission as well. And like I said, you can shop for the recipes by linking it to the required or to your favorite retailer. To complete the journey, you get ingredients delivered at home. You can cook the recipes that you want, leave the feedback, learn from it, and slowly start improving your dietary intake. But of course, we realize that this depends on the reach of our own platform. And we also know that recipe content is used massively by consumers to find recipe inspiration. And there are already very successful other recipe websites and platforms. And that is why we made the step to also collaborate with those platforms. So for example, our technology now is also live on Great British Chefs that has 2 to 3 million monthly users. So we can have a massive exponential growth of the number of consumers that we reach, because each platform that we add gives us access to another 200,000, 2 million, and the larger even 20 million consumers. So this enables us to set up a network throughout Europe and later also the US to reach large numbers of consumers and nudge them to make better food choices. So this is how we really scale the company, scale the revenue model, and scale the impact. And this complex set of technology has been created over the past 5 years by an interaction of our nutrition team that is displayed here, and also the technology team. And together, they make it all possible to implement these complex features and make it as easy as possible for the consumer to make use of the personalized nutrition toolbox. And also we have the commercial team that makes sure that we can actually work together with other partners and scale up a bit further. So that was me talking thus far, but you also hear more from Fleur. But I think Tiffany, from here, you wish to take over.
Yes, Anushka, let's see the result of the first question. So Jochem, you have a good audience because most of the people here agree with that good food is medicine. So there's a lot of demand for your service. Let's look at the second question, Anushka. So the second question is also relating to what Jochem was talking about. The question is, do you think currently there is enough information from supermarkets, nutrition labels, hospitals, if you need one, to help you to make good food purchase decisions? Whether you have enough, or do you also would like to see a service like Verdify that fills the gap? So while you're thinking about your answer to the question, I would like to introduce Floor. Floor Prasman, you are the director at Verdify, in charge of the nutrition program, and you are trained as a clinical dietitian and with experience in the hospital, right? So from that, when you put a hat on from a health professional, let's say, what do you think is the attitude in the hospital world towards the first question, whether food is medicine?
Well, it really depends. I think definitely yes, when it comes to certain conditions. Think of an example such as diabetes. I think here in the Netherlands, especially, we experienced over the last couple of years in multiple research projects that nutrition, diet can play a key role in overcoming diabetes type 2, getting rid of your metformin medicine. Of course, that's not always the case. I think in healthcare, it's really important to divide or make a clear distinction where nutrition can play a role, which can be curative, but can also be supporting or supportive, and where medicine needs to do the job. Because of course, we should not forget that in some indications or in some situations, nutrition is not enough. But on the other hand, we also know that in these indications where nutrition might not be enough anymore, nutrition could have played a preventive role. And that's also what we find very important at Verdify, that we can play a preventive role.
Right. So that's why I think your second part will be focusing on, indeed, how do you use data technology to, let's say, help hospitals before the problem becomes needing to be treated with real medicine. So tell us more.
Yes. So, of course, Jochem already gave away that we're impact-focused company. I think we have a couple of core values that are really important to us. Impact focus, not just on individual health, but also on planetary health, like Jochem mentioned. And in order to land in hospital environments, in clinical environments, we of course have to build trust. We work according to an evidence-based approach. The latest national dietary guidelines and insights in nutrition science form a solid base for the Verdify technology. And on top of this, further personalization according to individual wishes, needs, convenience can happen. Of course, transparency is key to what we do. Apart from the fact that we're very proud of the technology that goes behind it in today's world, of course, it's important to be open about what you do as a company and why that requires personal data sometimes. And this, of course, touches upon privacy as well. I think customers now want to be informed on how their data is going to be used, and they want to have full end control over the data. We get that. And another important aspect for us is empowering. We want to empower our employees and we want to empower users in their performance. So Jochem already explained about the food swaps the Verdify technology enables. Food swaps can play a huge role in making diet improvements for personal health. I guess a very straightforward example here is also, I guess, Jochem, when you have a gluten intolerance like Jochem, and you want to avoid grain products, you can swap out pasta for a gluten-free version. But besides personal health, today it's very clear that a much broader issue concerning food security to 10 billion people worldwide in 2050, respecting animals on the planet we live on, is there as well. And I guess this Nature article sketches that 20% of beef replacement for bioprotein could halve deforestation by 2050, which is very, very huge. And I guess this is what makes swap meals really interesting, because easy swaps on personal health, swapping out a simple ingredient like pasta, could benefit one individual. And at the same time, if we were to make tiny changes to our diets, all of us, in the form of, for example, swapping out meat on a Monday or a Tuesday, or maybe even both, could have massive impact on planetary health. And this graph also shows that the relative change of these variables, agricultural water use, methane, carbon dioxide, this all reduces when we would replace just beef. And that's just beef. We also have dairy. We have other products that impact the environment. And of course, it's really personal. One person is really able to avoid beef for a couple of days, or maybe forever even. And this other person might rather change dairy or change other products. Maybe you want to eat local. You want to eat your beef, but you want to eat locally. You might want to not eat avocados, for example. So also when it comes to planetary health, I think choices should be very personal. And according to your liking, because it's the only way it's actually feasible for people. So, of course, apart from the environmental impact, also the impact on health is really clear. Human health research is ongoing as well, and I think what was sketched here is that the global reference diet, which is developed by Eat Lancet, it's called the Planetary Health Diet, could save around 11 million lives according to this Eat Commission, which is of course huge. And similarly, this analysis here shows that diets lower in fat, meat, and sugar, such as, for example, the Mediterranean diet, that's also supported by swap meals, reduces the relative risk of several health conditions. Again, diabetes type 2, but also cancer and coronary disease mortality. So this is really strong evidence, and this is also what's the fundament of what we do. So the Verdify nutrition team analyzed where diet could have the most impact, and you see a list of indications here. For some groups of people or some indications, I think the importance is very known. This can be, for example, in diabetes type 1 or in pregnant women. And on the other hand, there could be conditions like, for example, irritable bowel syndrome, where it might be less known because you might not even be aware of the fact that your symptoms are coming from foods. And this analysis is used as a roadmap for further building the Verdify service. So we created multiple diet options already. They are a little bit abstract in terms of their naming, but they cover for a range of conditions. Think of, for example, diabetes type 2, but also overweight, people with kidney disease, people with hypertension, but also generally healthy eating is covered by the Verdify technology. The fundament of each diet, like I already mentioned, lies in national dietary guidelines, and if possible, combined with indication-specific dietary guidelines. And the dietary engine, the technology that we developed to take into consideration all these guidelines and apply them on the recipes, is working in parallel with another piece of technology, which is the swap mechanism. And both of these technologies can incorporate all the information from the national dietary guidelines and other guidelines and combine it with your personal data, such as your anthropometric data, like your weight and your length, etc. And then fully personalize recipes accordingly. And we've experienced quite some challenge to get to the level of success the algorithms has now, because of course what you see when you filter recipes on a regular recipe website is that the more filters you apply, the less recipes you will get to see. And of course, that's what we want to avoid with this technology. We want to make sure that all recipes are still usable for you, but they will adapt according to you. So you can imagine that this brought quite some challenges, but we overcame most of them. And that resulted in these diet programs, and there are more to follow. So with a previous version of the Verdify solution for consumers, we also participated in the crocodile study. This was a Dutch study conducted by the Wageningen University. And what they found was that the participants of the crocodile study using this Verdify app were very happy using the app. I have to explain this. Were patients with IBD, irritable bowel disease. They were happy using the app. Their quality of life with their disease improved, and they were they experienced less fatigue. They even mentioned that they want to continue using the app, although the app is not existing anymore. This was just one of the first MVPs. But the same service is still out there, it's working, and it's also improved. And hopefully soon will also be available in an app again. So like explained before, if you want to fully personalize recipes, it's important that data is available, personal data. And it's really important to be open about how this data is going to be used. So whenever we ask for personal data, we explain what's going to be done with it. And of course, the end control about data is always at the users. So we follow a GDPR-proof rule set. And I think, it's important to continue to also pay attention to this subject.
Floor. So for the very nice explanation from a more science-based perspective. Anushka, let's see what's the poll question. Wow. Okay, so we have a lot of fans for your app, I think. With 80% of people do think there is a need for a dedicated service for more personalized and food-based health recommendations. Great. So let's look at before we have last part, look at the third poll question. This question is to ask you, what is actually the phrasing should be, what do you think is the biggest challenge to promoting healthy and sustainable diet, whether it's lack of data or trust on the claims, a price issue, because a lot of good food are also more expensive, whether it's consumer behavior influenced by factors that's beyond choices, or it's about more of a coordination on the technology level for the right data access. So what do you think about the question? Joachim, what is your answer after 5 years of building up Verdify? What is your biggest challenge?
My biggest challenge or the biggest challenge for the consumers?
Well, or what's your response to the last question can also be.
Yeah. So if there's one thing that's hardest to change, that's behavior. People are used to follow the same behavioral patterns, and it costs a lot of energy to get out of these habits. So although prices might change, they have to change a lot to change your behavior. I think we also see that now with the rising gas prices. People finally start investing in the isolation of their house or other systems to save some energy, but they preferably not do so because it's costing personal energy as well. And the same accounts for food.
Is your technology helping to address this challenge?
Yeah, we aim to take away as much hurdles as possible, because the main hurdle is that people ask themselves the question, what should I be eating now or today or next week? What do my children like? Or I'm having a party with other persons and they have allergies, how to deal with this? We take away these mental burdens by providing the exact inspiration that matches the needs and preferences of you, but also other people around the table if you want. And then also taking the hurdle of actually going to the supermarket because you just choose for delivery. So that's, I think, the main concept. And of course, there are many building blocks to remove additional hurdles as well. And that's also something that we will show in the next part, I think.
Yeah, great. Please also indeed tell us a bit more how data and technology is helping you to build up the app to, say, filling the gap between the, let's say, the product and the consumer.
Yeah, technology is playing a key role, and without it, this concept could never come to exist. So here you see what we are building towards, and that's making it possible to get as much personal data as possible captured in your personal nutrition profile. So it could be data from a wearable like a Fitbit on your daily activity level, can be information coming from genetic tests, blood tests, continuous glucose monitoring, microbiome testing, advice from a dietitian, advice from a medical doctor. All these different layers of information can be stored in one single place and then used to find the right recipe inspiration. But if I would ask any individual to take account of all these data sources in making a food decision, they would never come to an ultimate decision because it's just too much to handle in your brain. And that is why we need technology to handle so many different data points and still come up with good recipe suggestions and the right meal inspiration. That's where technology comes in. And of course, also to make it possible to connect to food retailers, to catering organizations, and even in an ideal situation to get meals delivered to you at home that are fully personalized. It can only be done with the right technology.
And it's not just finding the right content, it's also adapting the content. Because if it's just finding the content and looking at a general recipe website again, you will probably find only a few results if you have multiple things to take into consideration for your health. But also adapting the content, adapting recipes, swapping in and out ingredients, adapting instruction steps to go for an optimal user experience.
Indeed. Yeah, and that makes it possible to set up experiences like this. So last year we won the Booster Award from Food Valley, and that enabled us to work together with a couple of organizations to create a user experience that helps to take away hurdles for healthy eating, and in this case specified to people who are overweight or who have obesity. So this is our ready-to-eat meals concept tailored to gut, genes, and guidelines. I think it's all in the name. And here we have created this flow of working together with these companies, making sure people at home receive a test to sample their stool, but also to sample a bit of their DNA. And that is sent to these companies. They get the results. And then the results are imported by us in the personal profile. So that means that the right settings are then generated. So it could be that people need more fiber because they have a poor microbiota diversity. Then of course they have to eat according to an enriched fiber diet. So all those data points are used, and then indeed, as Fleur was saying, on the swap meals platform, what happens is that each recipe is checked whether or not the composition is okay, and if not, one ingredient is thrown out and then replaced with a good alternative while still checking for taste, nutritional value, texture, and match with the recipe, and that the outcome is still something that that looks good but also tastes good. So that's what the technology does. And then here we have even matched it to the food, or actually the service of a company called Each. They are producing or developing a automated cooking, I wouldn't call it a robot, but let's call it a machine that can create fully personalized meals without human intervention. And those meals can be sent to people at home and be enjoyed by them at their own convenience. So this is made possible with quite advanced technology. So each of these companies here have complex technology to map genes, to map the microbiota, to handle all that data into a comprehensive format and use it to give people the right inspiration, swapped to them personally, and then to be prepared for them in a very efficient manner and sent to them at home. So this gives a bit of a taste for what is possible also in the future at larger scale, and that's exactly what we're working towards. So I think we have just explained this. So just to summarize it, quite important, what our technology does is we're adapting the recipe composition, swapping ingredients, and rewriting cooking instructions, which is only possible because we make use of advanced technologies, including from the artificial intelligence toolset with a lot of natural language processing and other tools that are implemented. And then, of course, a lot of complexity, but in the end, for the consumer, it has to be as easy as possible. So here we give a taste of the roasted peppers with lentil and couscous filling. Personally, I can recommend it, but I always swap out the couscous because it contains gluten. But that is possible in most of these recipes to provide the food swaps that you need, personalize it also, even if you don't have a personal profile, although I would recommend doing so. And what we're now also working towards is another concept that uses the same technology, but is maybe even easier for people to use. So this can live on any recipe website. And this is also what we presented at Carrefour, that delivered us one of the awards there in their plant-based eating challenge. So their question was, how can we convince consumers to choose more often for plant-based products? So what we did was make a copy of the recipe website of Carrefour and introduce the plant-based button. So tailor your recipe, make it plant-based. And what you see there is that the animal-based products fly out of the recipe and are replaced with plant-based alternatives. So it's adapted in a way that the whole recipe becomes available also for people who want to eat plant-based. And nicely about the technology also is that we can implement this on any recipe website with a single line of software code. So this whole bunch of software that includes thousands of lines of software code, I can promise you, can be implemented on any site with one line of code, which makes it easy to hook up with other platforms and to activate them and then to reach millions of consumers. And it's not only about delivering the right inspiration, but also about gathering insights, because we learn a lot from all these points where people interact with the recipe content. We see what recipes they're looking at. We see what ingredients they swap out. We see also what their background is and why they make specific choices and if they place it on the shopping list, etc. So there's a lot to learn from this big data gold mine. And again, here I have to stress, we don't share this information. We don't share personal information with other companies. What we can do is analyze it on a meta level and then use those learnings also to inform other stakeholders in the food ecosystem. And that's what we wanted to show you, but of course we're open to any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Jochem. We have a smaller group today, so also we already can open up the floor for just the discussions. But just to also conclude, Anushka, maybe we can see the response of to the last question. Oh, we have a lot of agreement of our participants. So most people think the biggest issue really is changing behavior. So in that aspect, by removing the hurdles of searching and decision making, your app and service can fill a very important gap in terms of bridging information. And then I think it offers also a huge amount of added value to existing supermarket chains and product companies, because that certainly will help them to provide additional service, added value service to customers, instead of just coming to the supermarket to buy whatever the labels claim. This can become more of a tailored approach, one step of shaping consumer behavior. So again, the floor is open. I'd like to also invite our participant to switch on your camera and your microphone. Any questions regarding the presentation or comments? We don't.
Okay, let me go first then. There's a lot of discussion on Nutri-Score, Jochem. And when I look at this, you could just say, well, let's, for example, as Eurocommerce, let's all embrace it. And you don't need it anymore. You don't need picking product, but you need something that helps you to, to pick a meal and to choose your meal behavior. And this would be beyond it. So is this beyond Nutri-Score? And would it make Nutri-Score completely superfluous? Or is Nutri-Score a first step? And or perhaps is it just getting in the way of something that is beyond?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Dick. And I will give the short answer. I think Fleur can give a bit of a more detailed one. But what I always say, we all have our own Nutri-Score. So a generalized version is never going to be as good as. But if you look at the current population, most people don't even reach the national eating guidelines for healthy eating. So the sufficient amount of fruit and vegetables, and they eat too much products that don't fit into a generally healthy diet. So already taking one step is a step in the right direction. But if you want to really get there, there are some other tools that you can definitely use. But maybe Fleur, you can complement this.
Thank you.
Well, for the time being, Verdify, of course, is about meal inspiration. So we're not suggesting anything on. Well, we do suggestions on product level, but it's mainly recipes. In our ads proposition, you see that we do suggestions on product level, and there we use a system like Nutri-Score to actually determine whether a product fits in our values or not. But Verdify doesn't help you at the moment when you're already in the supermarket and you want to choose for the right peanut butter. And I think the way we make choices, the way we make food choices is very personal as well. So not just what we need in terms of nutrition, but also the way we behave, or budgets, or way of living, the people on our how do you say it, on the table. So I think it's really important that all areas contribute to eating more healthy for personal and planetary health. So I think supermarkets play a key role, and I think it would be great if they can also take up their part and make use of such a score. And of course, Nutri-Score, it's a controversial topic because it's of course lacking at certain aspects, but at the same time, there's not a better initiative yet. Should we wait for a better initiative and do nothing in the meantime, or do we have to start doing something? But yes, definitely, Verdify is way beyond Nutri-Score.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else who have? Yes, Annika, please.
Yes, thank you for the thank you for the good presentation. It was very clear what you're aiming for, better nutrition for all people. But I was wondering, I saw only suggestions for hot meals. Do you also give suggestions for instance, for a breakfast or a lunch or a brunch or something like that? And do you also make calculations for a whole day?
Yeah, thanks for asking that question. And to answer it, we even have recipes for ice cream. Using melon, you can make your own fresh ice cream. So yes, we have everything, all the meals, all the snacks that you want to use. Everything from breakfast to the dessert at the end of the day. And
Even yoga.
And then I have to look at Fleur, but that might be too much sugar for our platform.
What was
I
the
can
question?
imagine that. Noga.
Nougat. Well, I'm certainly sure that it's possible actually with healthy ingredients, but I'm not sure if it's yet in the platform, but we could make it a request.
I don't
Yeah.
think it's too healthy, but it's very delicious.
Yeah, there are other companies that you could go for such products indeed. But to answer the second part of your question was about daily menus. Indeed, that's something we're now developing, daily and weekly menus, especially because we're now also working to build a service for people with cancer. There we enable medical doctors and dietitians to prescribe targeted nutrition programs to their patients that unfortunately have cancer, and they have a range of symptoms and problems that can partially be addressed with the right nutrition. And there it's crucial that we deliver them options for the entire week that can even be personalized according to the daily experienced symptoms.
Thank you for your answer. And are there also, and do you also work with special dietary products, for instance, like we have in the Netherlands, the Nutri-drink?
Fleur, could you take up this one?
Or you make your own recipes for it, because I can imagine that Nutri-drink is very sweet, and I know a lot of people that if they eat they will have very much difficulties to eat enough energy. I think Nutri-drink will be a solution, won't be a solution for them because they don't like the sweet taste.
Yeah, I have experience, of course, in the clinical environment, and I was supplying people with these Nutri-drinks. And yeah, the thing is, some people really need them because they simply cannot eat anything else because of swallowing problems or a sore mouth. And then at the same time, they have a very enriched energy and protein need. But I've always been looking for alternatives because indeed the taste is always a topic, and of course it's the same thing every day in, day out. So I think the technology could work around these Nutri-drinks. So we could definitely take them into consideration in, for example, the oncology program. But yeah, eventually, of course, it would be great if we can also come up with some content that can replace Nutri-drinks. But the thing is, the people that require such drinks usually are in a severe condition, lack energy, lack time, have a lot to struggle with already. So buying ingredients, going into the kitchen, prepare all of this yourself. So of course we have to find a way to make that work. But it would be part of the scope at a certain point.
Okay, thank you for your answer.
Thank you, Annika and Floor and Jochem. Anyone else?
I also saw a question in the chat.
I don't see that, but Tom Telau, like to maybe introduce yourself?
Yeah, I sent two private messages to Jochem. One of them is, what type of customers do you visit your platform at this moment? And the second was, are you not afraid that you only reach the young urban professionals because you are really data driven?
Yeah, thanks for these questions, Tom. So starting with the first, we have 4 main user groups that we currently see in the platform. In random order, these are people who want to eat generally healthy. So more inspiration for meals that contain a lot of vegetables, for example. I want to take care of their kids. The second is people with a medical condition or a food allergy. So they have the more extreme challenges and are definitely helped by setting up the profile and finding the matching inspiration. Third is people who are active in sports, so the athletes among us, and then there's the fourth group. I need to think which was that again. Yes, there are people with specific lifestyle challenges because of religion. So people who need to eat according to religious choices, but also people who really want to eat according to a vegan diet. For them, it's quite challenging to find good inspiration, and we can deliver that as well. So these 4 are currently the main. And then the second one, actually, we see that the age distribution is quite nicely spread. We also, of course, we have users between 20 and 30 years old, but we also have them of between 60 and 70 years old who appreciate the meal inspiration because, they also struggle with their health, and this is quite a convenient solution. And luckily, more and more people are tech savvy or know how to use websites. And then for us, of course, it's also a challenge to keep improving the user experience, so make it as easy as possible to use the platform, so can also reach those persons.
And I understand that. Could it not be that you will never ever reach the people that are mostly concerned with their health, or perhaps even not concerned, they simply can't get to good information? And especially the disease which comes from the States, the diabetes 2, obesitas, they are fundamentally found in the lower income classes. And I'm not sure whether those people will find your platform quite easy.
Yeah, again, a good question, and this is also a question that we've had in other settings. And I think it's the most challenging target group to reach, but it doesn't mean that we will not still address the issues that there are in this target group. Of course, it's not what we call the low-hanging fruit. Of course, those are the people with a strong motivation and also who know how to use tech platforms that we're now focusing on. But in our roadmap, we have actually found, and without disclosing too much, we've found ways how to nudge people also with a lower socioeconomic status because they're more sensitive for budget. So one thing that we are now also preparing for is that we can show the cost of a specific meal, because most people think it's very expensive to eat healthy, but it's actually not true. If you choose your products wisely, it can be even cheaper than those products that people are used to buy. So we can provide those recipes that actually have a lower cost, but we can also go one step further. I can't disclose yet too much, but we can enable people actually to save in a specific way for buying the healthier products, which fit in a generally healthy diet. And by giving them an economic stimulation, they actually are more tended to move. But this is in the early stage, and we are working together also with, or we're starting to work together with the behavioral scientists also to really get into the nitty-gritty of solving this challenge, because it's not an easy one. Otherwise, it already would have been solved, of course.
Thank you.
I think in the long term, it's also, of course, it's a challenge to actually get to these people. I mean, having a clear solution is one, but the people should also know where to find us. I think in the long run, of course, we would want to collaborate with insurance companies at a certain point. So via healthcare practitioners like GPs and dietitians, we can also be, they can also spread the word for us, so to say.
Thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else can raise your hand? Actually, I also have a question for you both, or Joachim. In our series, the one key question we try to address is this data allocation model, because that's one of the, well, it's actually a very important issue in digital transformation, is how do you create trust among the chain players and then have a value allocation for providing data and capturing value. So in one of your sheets, you showed let's say the ultimate value proposition connecting the healthy data providers, so the biomes and then the DNAs with consumer behavior, and then directly to, let's say, the end retail or food provider. That would be an ideal case. But in this case, you have also a lot of exchange of data. So how do you see that in the question of, in terms of, value capturing of accessing on data and sharing to start with?
Yeah, good question. No short answer. I apologize up front. So trust is built in a couple of ways, and coming from the world of drug development and medical technology, if there's one thing that I've learned is that you have to work really according to an evidence-based manner and to the best practices that are used in the medical domain. So following all the validation steps that are needed and working together with the experts. So in this case, the dietitians and the medical doctors. So these are persons that we also involve in our developments. That's one level. And we already see actually that oncologists advise their patients to use our platform at this moment. So that's already one very big part of trust. And the second is, and that's also what Fleur explained, is that what we place on our platform in terms of diet options, etc. If you click on these options, you get an overview of, in simple terms, of where we get this information from. So the data sources are shown, and we also check it with the guidelines of EFSA, whether specific claims can be made. And we're fully transparent about this. So transparency and referring to the source of data is an important other aspect. And then I think even having a team of 6 persons in our company that are either dietitian or nutritionist is also something that definitely is part of building trust. Plus then, and this is where it becomes interesting, of course, well, two aspects. One is we work also with food companies that are not very known for delivering products that are always very healthy. So here we have to apply a strong filter, and that's exactly what we do. We look closely at the nutritional value of those products that food companies would like to promote, also working with us. And if it doesn't fit in or it doesn't match our criteria, we will not work with them. So that is also a part of making sure that we protect the interests of the end consumer. And if that means that we have to make a concession on means of making less revenue, then we will do so. We choose for the consumers. And then the second part of your question is about data sharing. How do you make that possible, working together with so many different organizations to deliver that ultimate personalized nutrition experience? And luckily, we have a very good guideline, a GDPR rule set that actually explains very well how you can do this. So it's about, important part is user consent. People have to give their consent to make it possible that information moves from one company to another, so they know exactly what happens. They also need to be in full control of their data. So at all times, they need to be able to withdraw that data. So you don't have it anymore available if they don't want you to. So the user control and the consent is essential. And then there need to be data handling agreements among the organizations. So it's all according to the standard rule set to follow. So there are actually no borders to make this happen. You just have to follow strictly the guidelines that there are. And if there are any complexities, of course, this can be resolved by working together with the right legal counsels.
Thanks for the detailed explanation. I'd also like to see if anyone else have similar questions or other questions.
Yeah, I have one, and I wanted to connect Verdify to Blonk in Gouda, who was present, but the lady left. Obviously, they are in the whole LCA of sustainability, and they can make a difference between one chicken and another chicken. I think you would profit a lot from that. So a question on sustainability. How do you rank sustainability in chicken, for example? So there is a slow growing broiler, there's the fast growing broiler, but there is also a broiler that has been fed with circular feed, and the footprint changes. How far are you? I can see your architecture, it's easy to integrate it, but how advanced are you on that level?
Yeah, it's chicken and egg problem here, but maybe Fleur, you can say something about it.
Well, it depends on what level of the proposition, the Verdify proposition. I think on the consumer end, so the Verdify and swap meals service, we have a couple of things that we do with regards to sustainability. One is following a seasonal agenda, so we show seasonal recipes with seasonal ingredients. The other is how do you explain that? Well, swapping for sustainability, and then the responsibility, of course, is at the consumer him or herself. On the other end, we have the ads proposition, the product placements, and there we are very resolute. We say when it comes to meat, at this point in time, we say no meat at all. That's very harsh, I guess, but makes it very clear. With regards to other products, we're not as advanced as we could be at this point in time, because we're dependent on data, and we are not going to generate this data ourselves. We will always collaborate with partners that can do their work on the sustainability data, and we make sure that the technology can take into consideration this data. So there we can further build up our rule set around sustainability.
That is why I was trying to connect you, but the lady left already. Be aware of the fact that there is a huge what they call GFLI database on feed and animal husbandry. That could profit you. You could really use that, and it has actually the work of Blonk is behind that. Everything has been developed in the Netherlands, as you are, so it's very easy to see them.
Would be good to check them out.
I think we need to connect you, indeed. Yeah. And well, another answer. Another question. I asked you about Nutri-Score. It's a pity Albert Heijn isn't here. They're often here. Albert Heijn is very much pushing Nutri-Score, and we know the reasons why. Don's question is the answer to Don's question is why we need a Nutri-Score as well. But I don't see Albert Heijn being very visible with a project like yours. So choose your meal healthily and sustainably. Where are the actual campaigns on this? Why don't we see them yet, or are you working on that?
So you're asking us why we don't see a campaign of Albert Heijn?
Yeah, but for example, or Carrefour promoting, use this and you will have your, well, if you make your meals yourself, you can pick them this way and you'll have a result, well, and you can promote a result.
Yeah, so not talking about one specific food retailer, but in general about food retailers, is that you see that unfortunately 80% of all the products in the assortment don't fit into a generally healthy eating guideline. If they would shift to such an attitude, that wouldn't work for most of their suppliers. So there are going to be issues. But I do know what all the major retailers are saying is that they're on the road to making something happen here. And it's small steps. But they also work with the suppliers to decrease the amount of sugar and salt and saturated fats in the products. And that's happening. There is some improvement, but it's going slow. And I think consumers need to be taken by the hand as well, because they would say if we change our complete assortment, then the consumers will simply go to our competitor and the problem is not solved. So here there's also a bit of game theory at play. They all need to move according to these steps, working together as an ecosystem. And of course, we can enable them with the right technology to make it happen for those consumers that are ready today.
Thank you.
Zou een plekje via Consumentenbond nog helpen? De app laten uittesten?
So to translate your question, you're asking if it would help to have the consumer foundation, I don't know how to translate it, actually test the platform. Actually, we're testing continuously, so in our own team, but also with users, and we get user feedback as well. So it would be nice, of course, if they would write an article about us. It's good for publicity, but in terms of feedback, not a necessity.
Okay.
Another question. Also, Tom asked first in his first questions. Is it also possible for people with in the low income? But we have also people in the Netherlands that are a different group who have a very low health literacy and also are very unable to read because, well, they have, for instance, dyslexia or also other handicaps that made them, that gave them much difficulties to read. I can imagine that those people will have many difficulties to use your system. And still in these groups, problems of obesity and diabetes and cardiovascular disease can be very big because they have also a lot of other problems and stress. Are you also aiming to reach that group? And the second question after that is, how are you making that possible?
Yeah, thanks for the question. And I think this is a challenge that all tech companies are facing. This is something that goes across the entire industry. And what you see in general is that the more established companies provide accessibility options for people who have issues reading by increasing the font size. So that's just a general setting on their phone that would also apply to this platform. But one thing, and this is at an early stage because this is definitely not a challenge we are trying to solve today. And I can't say too much about it, but you know that there is technology for voice recognition. So you can interact with your phone without even looking at it. And that's also a piece of technology that we will incorporate as well. Yeah.
So there's a lot of development still going on, Jochem. You have a lot of big plans still to be realized, right? And so, well, if we have, thank you for today's presentation. I think we would love to hear more about the development of Verdify in some time, I hope, when a lot of the developments you just described also become operational.
Yeah, we'll keep it coming. Over the past years. We have set this up from nothing, and over the next 5 years, I think with the strong basis that we have, we can make a lot of these plans actually come alive. So thanks a lot for having us here and for giving us the podium to discuss it, and also very nice to have this interaction. It's a pleasure.
Great. Yeah, thank you very much. So if you have no more other questions, I would like to conclude today's session. Our next webinar will be over 1 month. So hope to see everyone again in a month. Have a good afternoon.
It will be on meat and on slaughterhouses and on animal welfare in a slaughterhouse. So quite a different topic.
Okay.
Will you also
good luck with
announce
that.
it?
Thank
Will
you.
you also announce it, Dick, on Foodlog?
It is being announced on Foodlog.
Okay,
Absolutely.
thank
As
you.
always.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
So have a good afternoon, everybody.
Thank you very much.